The 1960s gave us the golden age of American muscle. Raw power, thundering V8s, and cars that could smoke the tires at will. Today, we're counting down the 10 greatest muscle cars of the 1960s, the legends that defined an era and proved American engineering could build the fastest, loudest, and most badass cars on the planet. If you love classic muscle cars and American automotive history, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our deep dives. Let's fire up these legends. Let's start with the car that lit the fuse on the entire muscle car revolution, the 1962 Pontiac Catalina Super Duty. Now, technically, the term muscle car hadn't even been invented yet, but Pontiac was already building the formula. Big engine, lighter body, maximum performance. The Pontiac Catalina Super Duty was a full-size car that Pontiac put on a serious diet, stripping out weight with aluminum body panels and hood. Under that lightweight hood sat the legendary Ford 21 cubic inch Super Duty V8, rated at 405 horsepower. And those built after March 1962? They got even meaner with larger valves and a freer-flowing intake manifold that made them absolute monsters on the drag strip. Pontiac only built fewer than 200 Super Duty 421 Catalinas, making them incredibly rare classic cars. But their impact was massive. This was the moment the die was cast. Powerful engine, lighter car, pure American fury. The muscle car flood was coming, and Pontiac was leading the charge. The 1962 Pontiac Catalina Super Duty proved that when you combine brute force with smart engineering, magic happens. This was the birth of 1960s muscle cars. Comment below if you think full-size muscle cars deserve more respect than their mid-size cousins. While General Motors was still building full-size battleships, Chrysler had already figured out the winning formula: put a massive engine in a mid-size body. The 1963 Plymouth Savoy Max Wedge was one of the first true muscle cars, and it was an absolute beast. Chrysler's engineers, led by Tom Hoover, developed the Max Wedge big block engine that started as a 413 cubic inch monster in 1962 and grew to 426 cubic inches by 1963. With 425 horsepower on tap, the lightweight Plymouth B-body intermediates equipped with the Max Wedge were nearly unbeatable on the drag strip. They combined Chrysler's industry-first 3-speed automatic transmission with raw, unfiltered power that left competitors eating dust. Only around 250 Max Wedge Plymouths were built in 1963, making them super rare and highly sought after today. These weren't grocery getters, these were purpose-built drag strip warriors that happened to be street legal. The 1963 Plymouth Max Wedge was proof that Chrysler understood the muscle car recipe before most manufacturers even knew what they were cooking. Ford needed something to compete on the drag strip, and the big Galaxy 500 wasn't cutting it. What they needed was something smaller, lighter, and meaner. Enter the 1964 Ford Fairlane Thunderbolt, Ford's answer to the muscle car arms race. Based on Ford's mid-size Fairlane platform, the Thunderbolt was a lightweight monster. Ford replaced the steel hood, doors, fenders, and bumpers with fiberglass. They swapped glass windows for plexiglass. Every ounce mattered. Under that fiberglass hood sat Ford's high-output 427 cubic inch FE big block, churning out 425 horsepower at 6,000 RPM. This thing was built for one purpose: to dominate the quarter mile. Ford only produced 100 Fairlane Thunderbolts in 1964, 49 4-speeds, and 51 automatics. Though deemed illegal for NASCAR, they went on to win the 1964 NHRA Superstock Championship. The 1964 Ford Fairlane Thunderbolt was a factory-built drag racer that you could theoretically drive to the grocery store. Theoretically. In reality, this was pure, unfiltered speed wrapped in lightweight fiberglass one of the rarest American muscle cars ever built. If there's one car that truly kicked off the muscle car era, it's the Pontiac GTO. And the 1965 model with the legendary Tri-Power setup? That's the one hot rodders dream about. Pontiac's decision to drop a 389 cubic inch V8 into the mid-size Tempest Chaton Le Mans body was bold. It violated GM's corporate engine displacement limit. But when sales exploded, GM looked the other way. The 1965 Pontiac GTO was refined perfection. Better brakes, heavy-duty shocks, stronger anti-sway bars, and more power. The base engine jumped to 335 horsepower, but the real star was the Tri-Power carburetor setup, rated at 360 horsepower. Three two-barrel carburetors feeding that 389 V8 created a sound and fury that became legendary. The Tri-Power setup was gone by 1967, making the 1965 model the peak of this iconic configuration. Sales of the 1965 GTO more than doubled to over 75,000 units. This wasn't just a car, it was a cultural phenomenon that proved young Americans wanted power, style, and performance. The 1965 Pontiac GTO Tri-Power defined what a muscle car should be: fast, loud, and unapologetically American. This is the car that started it all. Let us know in the comments, GTO or Chevelle. Which one deserves the title of greatest muscle car? This debate has raged for decades, and we want to hear where you stand. In 1966, Chrysler did something that changed the muscle car game forever. They made the legendary 426 Hemi available to the public. Previously, the Hemi was a race-only engine that dominated NASCAR until the sanctioning body banned it in 1965. NASCAR's message was clear: if you don't sell it to the public, you can't race it here. So Chrysler called their bluff and homologated the Hemi for street use. The result was the 1966 Dodge Coronet Street Hemi. 425 horsepower of pure, unfiltered fury available to anyone who could write the check. To make the race-only Hemi reliable for street use required serious engineering. It needed to run in all weather conditions, at different altitudes, and be dependable enough for daily driving. Chrysler pulled it off. The street Hemi became the stuff of legends. It was expensive, thirsty, and temperamental. But when you fired it up and felt that rumble, when you mashed the throttle and felt those rear tires break loose, nothing else mattered. The 1966 Dodge Coronet Street Hemi proved that Chrysler was serious about street performance, and it set the standard for muscle car dominance. The Hemi engine became the most feared power plant of the 1960s. If you're enjoying this countdown, smash that like button and make sure you're subscribed for more classic muscle car content. American Motors was late to the muscle car party, but when they finally showed up, they brought something special: the 1968 AMC AMX. While AMC had focused on practical family transportation, they watched competitors rake in cash from the youth performance market. By 1968, AMC realized they needed to catch up. Designer Dick Teague created the stunning Javelin and the even sexier two-seat AMX, a compact sports car designed to take on both the Ford Mustang and the Chevy Corvette. The top engine for 1968 was the 315 horsepower 390 cubic inch V8. Combined with a curb weight of just 3,000 pounds, the AMC AMX delivered blistering acceleration at a bargain price. What made the AMX special was that it allowed American Motors to compete in the muscle car wars while maintaining their high-value strategy. You got sports car performance and styling at a price that didn't require a second mortgage. The 1968 AMC AMX proved that you didn't need to be a Detroit giant to build a legitimate muscle car. Sometimes the underdog builds something truly special. This rare American muscle car deserves more recognition. Tell us in the comments, Do you think AMC muscle cars are underrated? Should the AMX get more love from collectors? You can't talk about 1960s muscle cars without mentioning the Camaro. And when it comes to Camaros, nothing beats the 1969 COPO Camaro. COPO stands for Central Office Production Order, a backdoor way for savvy dealers to order Chevy's biggest engine in its lightest car, creating a factory-built supercar. In this case, COPO meant stuffing a 427 cubic-inch big-block Chevy V8 into the Camaro, bypassing GM's internal restriction on engines over 400 cubic inches in smaller cars. There were actually two COPO 427 Camaros. The COPO 9561 with the solid lifter L72 iron block 427, about 1,015 units were built, and the ultra-rare COPO 9560 with the aluminum ZL1 427, of which only 69 were built. Why is the COPO Camaro so valuable today? Because it represents the ultimate factory hot rod, a car that shouldn't have existed according to GM's own rules. But savvy dealers found a way to make it happen. The ZL1 Camaro is one of the rarest and most valuable muscle cars ever produced. Back in 1969, dealers couldn't move them because they were so expensive. Today, they're worth millions. The 1969 COPO Camaro represents the pinnacle of Chevy performance in the 1960s. A factory hot rod that could embarrass anything on the street or strip. This is the ultimate Camaro muscle car. The 1969 Ford Boss 429 Mustang wasn't supposed to be a high-profile street muscle car. It was built to homologate Ford's Hemi engine for NASCAR. But what Ford created was one of the most legendary Mustangs ever built. The Boss 429 engine was a semi-hemispherical combustion chamber V8 rated at a conservative 375 horsepower. In reality, with the right tuning, gearing, and exhaust, it was worth much more, and it proved nearly unstoppable. Because the Mustang's engine bay was too narrow for the massive Boss 429, every car was sent to Carcraft in Brighton, Michigan, for modification before receiving the Hemi engine and special performance equipment. Only 859 Boss 429 Mustangs were built in 1969, and 499 in 1970, making them incredibly rare. Today, they're among the most sought-after muscle cars in existence. The 1969 Ford Boss 429 Mustang was a NASCAR homologation special that became a street legend. Proof that sometimes the best muscle cars are built for racing first and the street second. This is one of the rarest Ford muscle cars ever made. Which do you think is better, Boss 429 or Hemi Cuda? Drop your answer in the comments and let's settle this once and for all. By the end of the 1960s, the horsepower wars had reached a screaming crescendo, and Dodge was about to build something absolutely insane. The 1969 Dodge Charger Daytona was designed for one purpose: to dominate NASCAR. To qualify for racing, Dodge had to build 500 street-legal versions and sell them to the public. What they created was a car that looked like it came from outer space. A massive nose cone shaped in the wind tunnel. A towering rear wing that looked more at home on a jet fighter than a passenger car. And under the hood, Chrysler's invincible 426 Hemi. The public had never seen anything like it. This was a race car you could buy from a dealership, drive home, and park in your driveway. It was outrageous, over the top, and absolutely glorious. The Dodge Daytona dominated NASCAR, hitting speeds over 200 mph and proving that Dodge wasn't playing games. They called NASCAR's bluff and reserved themselves a spot in automotive history. The 1969 Dodge Charger Daytona is one of the most recognizable muscle cars ever built. A rolling testament to American engineering audacity. This aerodynamic muscle car changed racing forever. We're almost at number one. Stick around to see the greatest muscle car of the 1960s. You won't want to miss this. And here we are. Number 1. The greatest muscle car of the 1960s. Okay, technically 1970, but it's the culmination of the 60s muscle car era. The 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS 454 LS6. This is the car that every teenage boy had on his bedroom wall. This is the car that defined American muscle. This is peak performance, peak styling, peak everything. Why is the Chevelle SS 454 considered the greatest muscle car ever? Because it represents the absolute peak of American muscle car performance. The most horsepower ever offered in a production car at that time, wrapped in one of the most beautiful bodies ever designed. The LS6 454 cubic inch big block V8 was officially rated at 450 horsepower and 500 lb-ft of torque. But everyone knew those numbers were conservative. Chevy underrated their engines to keep insurance companies and regulators from having a collective meltdown. In reality, the LS6 was putting down closer to 500 horsepower, 0 to 60 in under 6 seconds, quarter-mile times in the low 13s. And it did it all while looking like a rolling work of art with its cowl induction hood, blacked-out grille, and aggressive stance. At the time, this was the most horsepower ever offered in a production car. Just 475 LS6-powered SS 454 Chevelles were produced in 1970, making them incredibly rare and valuable today. The 1970 Chevelle SS 454 LS6 represents the absolute pinnacle of the muscle car era. This was America at its finest, bold, powerful, and unapologetic. This wasn't just a car. This was a statement. This was the American dream wrapped in steel and chrome, powered by a big block V8 that sounded like thunder rolling down. Main Street, the Chevelle SS 454 is the ultimate American muscle car, the king of 1960s performance cars. Do you agree with our #1 pick, or do you think another muscle car deserves the top spot? Let us know in the comments. We love a good debate. The 1960s were the golden age of American muscle. It was a time when horsepower was king, fuel was cheap, and manufacturers competed to build the fastest, loudest, most powerful cars ever to hit the streets. These 10 machines represent the best of the best, the legends that defined an era and proved American engineering could create automotive masterpieces that still take our breath away decades later. These weren't just cars. They were dreams. They were freedom. They were the sound of America roaring down the highway with the throttle wide open and not a care in the world. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this countdown of the greatest muscle cars of the 1960s, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our next deep dive into automotive history.